Cyber season is in full swing with our pals Isotope and Native Instruments.
Get huge discounts on everything from Guitar Rig 7,
Complete 14 bundles,
and one of our favorites here at the Cult and Culture Podcast,
Ozone 11 EQ. Go to isotope.com
and nativeinstruments.com
to feast on the audio goodness. Yum.
You can also get additional savings on other softwares by using the code
RUIN10.
DistroKid now also has a motherfucking app. The DistroKid app is available for iOS and Android. You can download it at distrokid.com/app/, or you can get it in the App Store.
Fuck. All right, we're rolling.
Rolling.
Planet B
Presents.
Cult and Culture Podcast.
Welcome to episode 37 of the Cult and Culture Podcast. I'm Justin Pearson.
And I'm Lucien Greaves.
This episode features Satanic Planet, our band, kind of like our previous episode, Planet B, our band.
Messages in the television static, subliminal voices drive you mad. Satan chanting backward music, Indian outbreak, enemy human. Secretive ritual chanting, inside sacrifice animals, conjugate. Dominate over the godly pieces, entering while you feel like racing. Wormwood drinking, evil ghost be pentagram, where the black will cut me.
This one, it's weird because it started, we had a podcast with Lucien Greaves, and that started Satanic Planet.
Yep.
So we're doing a full...
New album.
Yeah. Well, also full circle podcast back to this, but yeah, it's an odd trip thinking through the existence of the band so far.
Yep. I mean, obviously that was the reason, not the reason for the podcast, but he was here recording vocals for the new album.
Yeah.
Which is coming out good.
It's a hell of a lot better than our first one. More focused.
Agreed.
It was crazy because when we were here, Lucien was popping out and going to, was it CNN?
Oh, yeah.
to go like talk shit about
his press duties. And this time was the Hustler thing. And
yeah. Oh, yeah. If you haven't checked out the new Hustler, you probably should. For reasons related to Satanic Planet, not to...
for reading material.
That magazine's brutal, dude. I couldn't get over it. One showed up at my house today, actually. Our band's weird, and we should just dive into this.
Another weird band. Huh?
There's something that I noticed. We talk some shit. I purposely talk shit about Corey Feldman in this. You guys can check it out in a second. But we did the same. I talked shit about that guy in the Planet B podcast as well. The previous episode. It must have just happened. I must have just saw that guy perform. It was terrible. But anyhow, let's get into this and have you guys check it out. And yeah, we'll see you on the other side.
Yep. Late.
Hello. We are Satanic Planet. This is part 2 of the three of us doing a podcast together, which is interesting because I think when we first
met,
a lot has happened since then.
Yeah, including the formation of Satanic Planet. Did we do a podcast as Satanic Planet? Or?
No, we just met you and did it.
Yeah, and then we did the...
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we talked about the band idea after we did that podcast.
Yeah.
Let's just jump into this and let's talk about Corey Feldman. I recently saw him performing and it was fucking awful. And I kind of felt bad for him, but I heard he's a total prick. And then you told me some shit and I was like, oh, he is a total prick.
Yeah, I think he's a total prick.
Yeah.
And that comes from the fact that some years ago, he retweeted somebody who was calling for the destruction of Satanic Temple headquarters in Salem, encouraging people to burn it down. And then I messaged him and said, what is this? What are you doing this for? And he just blocked me. And then,
Of course.
yeah, and then I reported it turned into a big thing. Then I reported the tweet because it was taking off. Somebody posting our address and saying, "Go
Holy
burn this
shit.
place down." I mean, the address is publicly available, but
Yeah,
when you
but-
post it and encourage people to burn it down, that's something else. And this was pre-Elon Musk. Remember, Twitter was still pretty shitty even back then. Not as bad, I guess, but I reported the tweet to Twitter because obviously that violates their terms of service. So they got back to me and said, this doesn't violate our terms of service.
Whoa,
and I
that's
thought,
crazy.
well, I thought obviously somebody's not looking at this, so we'll report it again. So I encouraged my own followers to submit that tweet and report it for it's targeted harassment and calls for destruction and stuff like that. So Twitter, they exiled me. They banned my account, and their rationale was that what I was doing was targeted harassment against the person who had called for the destruction of the Satanic Temple.
Not Corey Feldman though, the original.
No, not
Yeah.
Corey Feldman's out of the story by
Yeah.
that time, but
Yeah.
I'm just talking about how the story just kind of developed from there. And then it wasn't until national news stations started posting a few articles saying this, the Satanic Temple leader was kicked off of Twitter because somebody called for the destruction of their headquarters.
Which
that-
eventually did happen.
yeah, somebody did light it on fire eventually, but ultimately, well, once news articles started coming out, then Twitter reversed themselves, and then
course.
they put me back on. But that's all you need to do if you get a bad judgment against you by one of the social media companies. You just have to have national news media pay attention to it, and
Which
start
almost
writing
anybody
stories.
can
Yeah,
accomplish.
yeah, right.
Um,
It's easy as that.
So yeah, fuck Corey Feldman. He did kill Jason Voorhees. He also killed vampires. So I guess it makes sense for him to try to burn down the temple.
Well, I think he's got a whole background of claiming satanic ritual abuse and things like that. I think he's caught up in those conspiracy theories. From what I understand, when I was looking at his bullshit at the time that he was doing that retweet, it looked like he had gotten involved in some type of conspiracist subculture that was reminiscent of the 80s and 90s, where he's probably been living his entire life
course.
because he was
On
more
drugs.
he was more of a star back then.
Oh. But maybe all the
And drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. So it's weird because we got off to like such an obscure start as far as like at least me, I guess, like as far as starting bands. It was such a weird thing. Like we kind of just unknowingly what we were going to do went into something, which is cool because it's organic and it became a thing because we did some stuff and then we wanted to collaborate with Dave Lombardo and then he became a fourth member and that took off on a whole other route because a lot of people expected it to be like metal and Slayer and fucking Dave got a lot of pushback from I think the metal community, which is kind of a drag, but it is what it is.
Yeah, metal fans are fucking super
Dicks.
Yeah, dicks, but they're
Like
so
Corey Feldman.
like you can't stray away. Like they're like it's metal or you're fucking,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, but with AI, like I was saying, when you have those kinds of narrow parameters for your genre, where it's like it can't deviate outside of this or it's not metal, pretty soon they're going to just have metal song generators, AI will be able to churn this stuff out because some of those people are looking for shit that's so uncreative and so predictable that it'll be easy to generate. And really, it's like, fucking listen to Slayer again if you want to.
Yeah.
Nobody's stopping you from listening to the shit Lombardo did before. It doesn't negate any of that. Let
And
the
also
guy do
like,
whatever.
and also if people want to hear some sort of reincarnation of Slayer, it would almost have to be like as good or better, because there are all these subpar Slayer kind of bands, and that's just like let it do the thing, and like let Dave go on and do his other shit. He's done prolific, weird, all kinds of genre stuff. So I just feel like people need to get off his back.
He was on he did that song for a movie with Melissa McCarthy or whatever. Like some space, I forget what movie it was, but I'm like, fucking do your thing.
His body of work is insane.
Yeah, he soundtracked some cartoon recently too, I thought.
Oh, that comic book thing.
Yeah, that
that
was
was
cool.
dope.
But I think like Chelsea Wolfe and stuff was on it. It was pretty dialed in with like the cool.
Anyways, the
musicians.
point is, people who think that he's just all about double bass drum are pretty behind the times.
Sure.
Well, metal fans are behind the times.
Yeah. I don't want to jump too all over the place, but we should just spend some time on some important shit. I think the fact that we played the Indiana State Capitol is insane. I don't know that normal. Well, I guess only normal bands play. You know, if you want to call Sean Feucht his musical thing normal, but it is weird.
Well,
that
we should explain who Sean Feucht is.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
mean, this all came about. You know, we were already knee deep in Satanic Planet stuff, working on our second album already at the point where I became aware of this guy. He's a Christian nationalist performer, Christian rock kind of guy, I guess, and some of his stuff charts in that world. And to this day, I haven't listened to any of it because anytime I try to listen to anything from that world, it's shit. But
which is,
not
you know,
interested.
I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people say that about our band, but it is what it is, you know.
Oh yeah, no, they absolutely would say that
Yeah.
about our stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I don't get their stuff, they don't get ours, and I'm happy having that.
But I would
separation
prefer them
between
to
us.
say that about us, where they would be like, "Why are they saying that about us?"
Right, right.
It hurts their feelings more than ours, I would think.
Yeah, but anyways, he's going around as many state capitol buildings as he can to hold these Christian revival type shows where they were doing baptisms, all this other shit, and in the state capitol buildings, singing Christian music, laying hands on each other, arms up in the air, praising hallelujah. And, you know, that's all one thing. And then to further make it insulting, he grabs GOP politicians from the states and then makes these declarations that this is a Christian nation and all that kind of thing. And it's not. Those are public forums, and if they're going to open up state capitol grounds to those kinds of performances, well, we figured Satanic Planet's well positioned for that. Here I am, a religious leader as well, with a band, and we could play at a state capitol building that would also have Sean Feucht. So then we submitted to play Indiana, and
So why Indiana first?
Indiana
That's the
just
one he played that
Yeah,
first.
he played that, and it was also, you know, we have a strong congregational presence in Indiana, and it's not too far from Detroit, where we also have a strong congregational presence. We've worked with the Indiana Capitol before, putting up holiday displays and that type of thing, and also they really let Feucht go all out. Some of the other locations, we might have more restrictions as to how we play and what we do, because in some of the buildings he played, we could see from the video footage that he was entirely acoustic.
Yeah.
Whereas in Indiana, he was plugged in, they had keyboards, they were amplified and everything. So it just seemed like it would also be less prohibitive in that way to use Indiana as the kind of testing ground to go first. But that all said, I still thought we would probably just go into litigation and not play the show.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't.
thought, yeah.
I was like, book it.
Also,
and-
totally.
Well, I anticipated it would be a far bigger deal than it was. It got relatively little coverage, and I never know what's going to make people melt down. But I was prepared for the worst. I was prepared for nationwide panic over a satanic band that was going to play in a Capitol building in a state in the Midwest while we're doing unbaptisms and all that kind of thing. Very little. Then, months later, this month, our Iowa congregation simply puts up a holiday display at their Capitol, and the whole nation melts down. So you never know.
But I mean, the thing they set up there stayed there. We were just there for like that, you know, hour or whatever. Because the protesters that came out were like, I mean, if we were gonna be there all week long, you know, playing every night,
That's
it
true.
would have been like,
Yeah.
at some point they would have got over there to make a stink. I don't know. It was a trip. Also, too, the protesters were pretty whack, but it is what it is. I didn't expect a whole lot, but I did expect it to be violent, and yeah. I don't want to throw anyone on the bus, but we had a second drummer that we had worked with that got scared and bailed on us because he thought there was going to be violence, which
It's really, really funny.
acted like a fucking poser. But anyhow,
Well, I mean that wasn't an irrational fear. Honestly.
yeah, but he's in a metal band, you know.
I know,
with
but that was the thing.
Slayer
I
would've
just
fucking done it.
I just kind of feel like if you had signed on to begin with, you should have had some idea of what you were getting into.
Yeah,
but and I felt, I mean, we all knew it was unknown what we were walking into. It turned out everything else, rather, outside the lack of coverage and lack of people really noticing, everything else I thought went incredibly well, much better than I would have thought that a show like that could have possibly
the
gone.
technical aspects of like the PA speaker was burning out like on the first song was kind of
that
a
was
bummer.
me.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know.
yeah,
You smell it right away.
there were a lot of
Yeah,
problems,
yeah.
but the worst ones weren't there, right?
Oh, sure.
We were able to load in
You didn't get
underground.
shot.
Right. I was worried we were going to have to go through a battle zone to get in and then come out and be unprotected, too.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, we can't complain about how they treated us at the
It was.
Capitol.
They were really nice.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And
Even the
they
pigs over there were
they
nice.
looked like they were dedicated to protecting us there. Like they let us pull in underground. They came out and met us.
Yeah.
There were like 5 officers there too, and we just loaded our stuff in. They didn't check any of it. And then we realized, we could have played a normal set, and instead we had reworked everything to do with the cello set.
Yeah.
But that
They
was
didn't
kind
even-
of with future performances in mind too, because like I said, in future ones we might have to go even strip down more and make it acoustic.
I purposely staged myself so far away from you because I figured you were gonna get shot first. So
Yeah, right.
I'm like, I'm gonna play over here. I'm gonna put the cellos right behind you.
Yeah.
It was good though. It was fun.
But the acoustics were great in that place.
It worked
That was
out.
another thing
It
I
was-
thought was going to be terrible.
Me
I
too.
thought it was going to be one of those horrific environments where you shout out and it echoes back and forth for like 10 seconds before you finally hear the last of it fade out. But no, it really handled the sound really well. There's a couple recordings in both of them where, I think the one on YouTube is pretty professional,
Yeah.
but even people's phone recordings were there was a
What's his name did a
clarity you
good
just
job.
don't usually hear.
Yeah, well, it turned out.
Ted.
It turned out really well. Yeah, our sound engineer was great too, hustling. It is crazy too to think about like the accomplishments of regular music, and I'm a big fan of this. But like when you can get legitimate protesters or people listening or viewing your band that would no way ever possibly see you at a club, then you're doing something right. You know, I mean, there are all these like regular people up there. you know?
Right, yeah, that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
say. Like, the YouTube video is worth looking at just to see the audience, because I recognized that when I was watching the footage. You can see the upper level in the state capitol building while we're playing, and you see these people. They're all in khaki and like business casual golf shirts, and they're wearing their lanyards. They're all state employees in the building. And to their credit, they were respectfully watching, and after songs, they were clapping.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I
So-
mean, they're probably just like, we're respectful. Like, that was interesting. They don't know. You
I know. They're like, yeah, they're going to put a spell on us. Hey, good job.
I do think, though, the consistency of the cellos and the fact that our voices were fairly unprocessed, we were just going kind of raw vocals. I think that made it a little more accessible to the audience. I think.
No, it was definitely not accessible musically. It was it is bizarre as fuck. Let's give ourselves some credit. It was fucking weird. I mean, I mean, the people that came that know all of us, know our bodies of work or whatever, that makes sense. But anyone else is probably like, this is some bizarre ass shit.
I didn't think we'd play the full show either. I honestly thought that we'd get kicked out before
Okay, so that's
that.
funny too, because there is that fucking second-rate dollar store, what's his name guy, the minister that was like, "We're gonna shut it down," and he's like, he's on YouTube. It's really good, his thing, and he's like yelling and yelling, which is funny because during the set, I had not heard that guy yelling. I did not know, but he was like trying to make it loud so they'd shut it down. And then we finished our set, and he's like, "We shut him down."
Yeah.
Like, dude,
They
finished our
posted
set.
like a whole thing, like it was like Christian shut down Satanic band.
Yeah.
Well, they even commented on the YouTube video, and it's like,
Yeah, they
don't
didn't-
comment on the video evidence that proves you're lying, because at the very end of that video, we sign off. We tell everybody we're done, and we say thank you,
Yeah.
good night,
Yeah.
that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Good night was
Or
good
good
too.
afternoon,
Daytime.
yeah.
No, you said good night, but it was
Yeah,
funny.
I did.
That guy was pretty whack. I would love to.
It's like, thank you, Detroit. Good night.
Oh man. Man, I don't even know where to go with this. We could talk about the new album, but we could also just talk about the fact that it is a strange band. It's not normal. It's not.
Well, I think talking about the difference between the original idea to what it's become now, that's been on my mind since we've been working on the second album, as we have been right now. But, you know, like you, Justin, were saying yesterday that the first album was a bit more all over the place than you would prefer. And I was thinking, like, as a product, now that I think about it in retrospect, sure, but when you remember like the evolution of the album itself, it would be impossible for it to have the kind of coherence like the second album is developing to have. And that's because, you know, you guys were doing this podcast with me, and originally the idea was a spoken word album, a one-off kind of thing, and maybe something that would be, you know, Lucien Greaves with Planet B, and there'd be some musical background or whatever. Then right away, Luke and I start fucking around sending files and stuff like that and trying to build like the atmosphere for the spoken word, and pretty soon we're breaking down these scripts, all of us, you're screaming in it and shit like that. But even still, even though it started becoming musical, there's still that element of spoken word, like Passage is just a spoken word kind of track. And then the other tracks had these kinds of functions, like Unbaptism was really, you know, originally in my mind conceived of to be an accompaniment to an unbaptism ritual. And like to that end, when we first started it, I thought, okay, this could possibly be like a 10-minute track or something like that. And then we started doing things, and it just became a musical project.
Yeah.
And now, you know, we're working on this second album, and I feel that this one is far less inhibited by any of these other kinds of goals. Now it's just the music for its own sake. Satanic Planet is its own thing. We're not trying to do an album that speaks to the specific values of the Satanic Temple or anything else. It's just, it's us, and we're making music. And I think that's a good thing.
It is a good thing, but it also is just an interesting thing to try to navigate on the level of being a band. You know, it's like, because it was also too weird timing, because we were about to play our first shows, and then the fucking pandemic hit, and it was like, oh, we're not going to play shows, which maybe, I mean, in retrospect, I don't know, maybe that was a good thing, because I feel like we needed a little bit more time to figure it out. But also it could have, I don't know, it's just an interesting thing coming from a musician, or like the way that like a band functions. It is very odd. Also, too, the fact that you live far away. Dave never has really worked with us in the studio. He does stuff on his own in his own studio where he lives, and so it is kind of interesting. I mean, I guess that's common for a lot of bands, but it is interesting when like we're a band. Let's jam together and like write together.
Yeah,
you know?
it doesn't.
I do think we had planned the first shows we were going to do. That was too early.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
way too early.
Yeah. I don't even know if the album was out yet.
No.
Yeah.
The album was not out yet. I don't even
I think
it
we
was
only
finished.
had like 4 songs. Yeah, I don't even think it was finished.
Things were rolling too fast. There was more pressure, I felt, on the first album, too. This one, we've been paying attention to a lot more details. We were actually, I felt, under some pressure to produce the first album a lot quicker, because I remember Live Nation agreed to rep us right away, but we needed to send them a track. And that was what forced us to immediately release a version of 999. Yeah, that it wasn't actually the final version we went with.
Yeah, that was before we were even, I think, working with Dave fully too. So it was. So in retrospect, it is interesting that we were able to pause it.
Yeah, I think once the drums played a part in the music, it wasn't going to be a spoken word album. It was going to be a band, you know, and the experimental phase of working on that first album was so weird because I didn't know what we were going to do, you know? So I think that's probably part of the reason why it's so all over the place, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I'm trying all these new sounds, you know, which the kind of Planet B-ish, but I wanted to stray away from that with a lot of the sounds.
Yeah.
So,
Which I think on the new one is definitely its own realm. It is.
yeah, I was doubting the new album for up until just a couple days ago, and then I'm like, oh, it's good.
It's better.
I'm leaning towards that. Yeah.
I mean, the bar was set at a level, and I feel like we can't go below that, and so we're not going to go below that. But the new record to me seems like the score to a horror film.
Yeah.
It has like depth to it.
I mean, bringing the strings and horns into it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like it just has taken on a life of its own, and I think it's very evocative stuff. And I sit here and I listen to this stuff, and I'm to that point where the last album we were working on, you know, we would work on a track and we'd be like, okay, that's setting the new bar. And I'm to the point now I feel like everything we're working on is like set the new bar for me for the moment, you know,
Yeah,
because
totally.
I really like what it is. And like that might not stay, you know, it's not necessarily that every successive track is the best track, but in my mind it is, you know, because it's new and it turned out right, and I really love where it's going, and then it feels like okay.
But even like how we were last night revisiting tracks that we had done. And
Holy shit, that was kind of an experience because I hadn't been listening to some of that stuff, and then to listen to it here and have, you know, have it playing loudly on a nice sound system, because that was something with the first album too. At the point where we get to the point where we're exchanging all these notes back and forth and the final mix and stuff like that, far too often I'm listening at like low volume or off my phone and things like that.
Yeah.
And then to have this, you know, some of the completed tracks, well, that aren't even completed, are roughs right now playing, and then realizing, oh shit, having some distance on that too. And I'm trying out new things for me vocally, you know, this is a new experience for me too. So sometimes it takes some distance from doing the vocal delivery and being self-critical about it to being able to listen to it again some months later with a sense of detachment that allows me to say like, okay, that works, you know. I don't really necessarily need to worry about that.
Give the viewers a piece of what you're working with vocally, a little acapella.
Oh yeah. Just run through some lyrics.
Satan.
So
Well, screaming is new for me.
you
And
when you
it's-
you
it is
delivered it, I was like, damn, he looks like it sounds like a freaking
sounds-
psychopath, dude.
yeah,
you sound
psychopath.
like a full-fledged psychopath. It was great.
Yeah.
I'm surprised at how, like, with some of the screaming, like, I feel like we blend a lot better than I would have thought. Because when we were working on the previous album, I also thought there'd be no need for me to even try to scream, you know?
Oh yeah.
But my scream's a bit different, and but it's not like, but it's not so distant from yours that it's a harsh contrast. Really, I feel like it blends. I feel like we're the best duet since Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers.
I would like to be Dolly, please. She's great. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think like to me, you seem like a psychopath, and I feel like a witch, which is cool, I guess. You know,
A little bit.
Yeah.
I kind of see that.
Like
yeah.
he looks like when I hear his voice, I think like, oh, he's running down the street with a fucking axe in his hand, and me, I just feel like I'm some witch in a dark room making I don't know what.
Well,
I'm making.
your screams on this on this album are a lot higher pitched, which
Oh,
I
they're
fucking
ridiculous.
dig. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, that's why the first day I was like, dude, I don't think you're gonna make it through this whole session with fucking screaming like
It
that
is
all
a trip.
day.
It's a trip recording in this band because it fries my throat right away. And I'm trying to just go full throttle, and it's not very practical. But as long as I don't have to do it all, you know, for a month on tour or something. But even if I did it live, it would be different because it's only once. You only run the song once. But in the studio, you're going over and over.
Well, we were working
And
on
over.
something yesterday or the day before, and I had my kind of raspy shout vocals that were just layered under yours, and I feel like it added a further layer of texture that made it sound like you were really going to be coughing blood
Yeah.
after that delivery. And to me,
People
it sounds
probably
great.
assume that we were coughing out blood, and people ask like, "How do you do that?" And like, I don't know. I just
do it.
Some people scream and fuck themselves up, and some people just for whatever reason, I don't know. I mean, somehow I got it, but yeah, we definitely have a craft that we're working with, musically speaking. But also too, I think it's cool on the new album the fact that we're taking a different direction, which like Luke's brought in all the strings and horns, and even like the weird death horn. This stuff that's like not normal.
More native instruments.
It's completely. And also too, people would expect like it to be, metal or even like in the industrial world, which it is a lot industrial sounding, taking cues from like Ministry or Skinny Puppy or something, but more almost theatrical in a sense, because I could hear all of each song and be like, this could be in a horror movie.
To me, the new stuff is shaping out like orchestral. It sounds so big. It just sounds like there's typically a certain reverb on our stuff too. It just like if you close your eyes, I think you imagine just the enormous hellscape,
And also too, like one of the earlier songs, like sending it to Dave and having, Dave Lombardo play organ on it.
Oh yeah, that's so great.
I mean, that made the song. I don't want to say what song it is,
huge
but
pipe organ.
it's so sick. And like the song was fine, but then he did it, and I was like, oh my god, here we are, the godfather of double kick putting a friggin' pipe organ.
But
on
that's really the value in
Playing
having
church organ,
a good solid collaboration, though, because it was like he took a track that Luke had already really quite structured, but I remember I was thinking there's something wrong with this. I don't, it's not done yet. I think we all kind of felt that. And I feel like the addition of the organ, that kind of pipe organ sound in it, was counterintuitive for what it was, because it was kind of I kept thinking in the direction of louder, faster, kind of something to tie it together. And the chorus just wasn't blended with the rest of it yet. But
It's
to me, it was really
sounding.
I wouldn't have thought of it, and it was like that's the beautiful thing about
the organ that he added is like sad and like sort of peaceful sounding. It's really interesting. For whatever reason, it just took a different effect and a different approach to it. Dave took a different approach to it. I think it's.
But it was so different from everything I was thinking. That was
Of
what was so
course,
beautiful
yeah,
about it when it
yeah.
comes back and you're like, oh, okay, all right,
Yeah.
now this is a great track, and it really didn't take much, but it was like
I didn't like
having
it
that ear
at
for
first.
Yeah.
I didn't like it, and I was like, because I was so used to.
Right, it
the
was an
other way.
adjustment, but now
And
you
then
wouldn't take it away.
Like after 2 days, I'm like, fuck, okay. Like it took me to feel it, because I was like, oh shit, now I get it. Because I'm like listening to like, oh, what do you do? And they're like, what the fuck? But then when I felt, I was like, oh shit, yeah, there's like more feeling right there, and I was like,
Yeah,
Cool.
I feel weird saying this, but like you feel it like in your heart.
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, God, this is like very somber
and your gut.
yeah, it's good.
But it was just another element that made it like properly a Satanic Planet song on this second album too, and that was one of the first ones we worked on. But it was something that made the track big.
Yeah.
It all of a sudden gave it this huge sound.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like the rest of the album has followed that kind of.
That's because I don't know how to
expansive
stop.
sound.
So we need to just move forward and get into more capitals. I think that's the move.
Yeah,
I know you have a ton of shit going on. I mean, like
no,
yesterday's
I was
events.
I'm happy to admit it out loud. Like I just been kind of procrastinating. The first one, doing the first one, Indiana. I'm so glad we did that. It was so fun at the time, and it's funny with me. It's always like that. Like I'll go home. I'll become recluse for a while. I'll turn down offers to go out and meet with people and just a shut in, and then I dread the appointments I have, and then I go out and have fun.
Yeah.
And it's like that. We play a show. I'll be stressed out the whole time. We're playing the show. I love it. And I'm really happy that that's turning out to be the case. It could have been I hadn't done this before, so it could have been like, playing shows could have been a horrific thing for me. I find I like it. I like it more than any of the other things I'm doing.
Yeah.
Honestly, I really am having a good time doing it, and that's a great thing. But just the same, when we were planning Indianapolis, I was really stressed out about it, and part of that stress was I'm used to being under threat and things like that. I'm not really used to bringing other people with me. You know, I'm not used to like. And I kept having second thoughts, like I was dragging you guys in. I kept thinking, like, I should call these guys and tell them, like, look, you know, at any point you can bail out or whatever. But even that could be insulting too. But I kept second guessing it. And also, like, we did a $15,000 fundraiser to start that whole tour, and immediately I was getting messages like, "Where's all that money going?" And it's like, it's going to play these shows.
Yeah.
Like, do you have any idea how much this costs?
Insane.
Yeah, and but the thing is, we burned through probably most of that doing Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I mean, we can start up the fundraiser again and things like that, but like, people don't realize that, and you get into. This has happened with other satanic projects that I've done and things like that as well, where you're losing money on it personally, while at the same time being accused of conning people out of money. And it's like, is that worth it also, you know? But it is worth it in this case. And I do really want to pursue us playing DC, because DC, of course, is a very symbolic one, to do it at the federal Capitol, where they had also allowed Sean Feucht. So the door is open for us, and now I want to pursue that. Now things.
Can we start a fundraiser for our bail money?
You know,
I don't know if we would go to jail though.
If we're playing outside.
I thought maybe I'd go to jail. When
the fears here are no bullshit. When you have presidential candidates talking about how they would deny us our IRS status just because they don't like us, just because it's Satanism, you're not. I would say it's a close step then to, you know, anti-blasphemy laws and things like that. But that's not even really a step. That's just kind of a lateral move. You know, the next election has with, you know, they say every election, but for us especially, it's difficult to know where this goes, and if we're actually going to find ourselves for a period of time in which we can't play certain states. You know? Because we're generating protests and things like that, just in ways that, you know, for a not widely, you know, a band that's never charted or anything is pretty extreme.
I don't want to name names, but we were recently trying to play this festival, and they were like, we really want you to play, but we can't have you. This is in California too. We can't have you play because the people of this city will freak out, and the people that own the venue could have backlash. And I was like, wow, that's a trip, that this is like threatening to people. You know, it's a fucking band, and we're just gonna perform some music, but it is a threat to them. So that was a trip. And I also felt like kind of glad, like I was like, oh, that's cool that I'm in a band like that, and I'm not just in like a regular band that can get away with stupid shit.
But now you've seen, like, we played Indianapolis and it wasn't that big a deal.
But
you know, we had
not
pushback.
a big deal. Oh yeah, but you had thought it would be like more in a negative thing, but like all of the positive stuff, there was so much positive shit.
There were people there for whom it meant everything, and we're gonna have that kind of crowd. There were people who traveled from out of country.
Yeah.
You know, somebody who came from Brazil to see this show.
Yeah.
Like that's how meaningful this is to a certain crowd. But then, you know, to contrast, like, the outsized reaction in Iowa over a holiday display, as opposed to them kind of missing Satanic Planet playing, it should give you guys some kind of indication of how random this shit is. And I think if we have a tour planned in advance, like,
a tour would be one thing where we'd save money, but the fact is that we have to go to like show to show. That's where all that money gets.
Well,
eaten
right,
up.
but what I'm saying is, like, at random, we don't know. One of those shows could be a big deal to some people, and some group can make a thing of it, and we can go to other places, have you know, what our crowd show up and people like it, and then get to that one location, there be like hundreds of people out the doors, you know, with pitchforks
it's like
and
regular
torches
tour,
and stuff. Yeah.
It's, but an interesting thing would be like to go to Iowa next then and play that Capitol, you know.
Yeah.
And again, too, like how you were saying you were worried about the threats, and yeah, like I don't want any of us to die, you know. But I feel like I've spent a lot of my life like just like fucking with people, and I'm totally down to go. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to die, but if I get shot and don't die, that's cool, I guess. You know?
Well, my thinking on all
It's your
this was
street cred.
I've always been assuming we're walking into some kind of fight, except for our first show where we knew the audience we were playing for. We did a secret show for our first show, and that was a perfect kind of testing ground. This is the kind of thing you can do when you already have an established market. You can wear training wheels and go out, and we could have fucked up that whole show, and they would have been happy because I was hosting a movie night is what it was supposed to be. Is we were just playing films, and people from the Satanic Temple, people who are fans of this stuff, they just came. They didn't know that during the intermission, Satanic Planet would come out and play the first show. Yeah. And so, you know, that was one thing. And then Brooklyn was our first kind of like training wheels off out in just a normal crowd. Just
was that
whoever
our second
wanted.
Show?
I think it was, wasn't it? Was Brooklyn our second show? Mm-hmm. I think it was. Yeah, it must have been. But that was just out in the world, right? Yeah. And so I was thinking, so I'm always kind of fatalistic. I'm thinking the worst. I'm thinking everybody who's going to be in there is just going to be trying to throw shit and run at the stage and punch me or whatever. And it was total opposite. Yeah. Everybody was standing there. They were happy. Yeah. We sounded like shit. Yeah. You know,
you got in an accident before.
Yeah, I got crashed into and everything. Yeah. We set up our stage just like 30 seconds before we go on. We couldn't hear ourselves, you know, and any of that. But the crowd was so nice, and that's been the experience. I mean, we've still had a very limited amount of shows, but we played Detroit out in the world. But I still saw smiling people, like between songs, were just like yelling, "I love you" and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And then, you know, because I do lectures publicly and stuff like that. Those are always so much worse, you know.
Why though? There's
always people pissed off there, and then there's usually
yell during the lectures.
Oh yeah, and then there's like people in the Q&As who will just
say stupid shit in the Q&A. But
that kind of, and then you're supposed to address it and that kind of thing, and like you play the music, and afterwards people are just like, "I loved seeing you. I love what you're doing" and stuff like that, and then I'm like, okay, and then they leave or get their picture or whatever, and it's like, that's great. This is great.
Yeah, it is a different experience than doing a lecture, for sure. So yeah, I don't know. What do you? I think that we should do all of the capitals and become the first band. Well, I guess Sean Feucht did it, but we'd be like the first satanic band, I guess, to do all of them.
I think now the time is ripe to put in the application for Washington D.C. because
not Iowa.
I feel like I'm all over the news right now.
Can we put in an application for multiple places and just do?
Oh, we can do Iowa. Sean Feucht did Iowa, so we should do Iowa. And if I understand correctly, if what I think I saw of Feucht's performance in Iowa is accurate in my mind, it's a pretty big space. Yeah. And you know, in my thinking was, and I think I mentioned this before, is at some point on one of the bigger public outdoor venues, we should try to get, you know, some kind of support band that appreciates the activism here.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But if we do, like, so I say Iowa because of the recent news and the people, you know, destroying the holiday stuff.
The display.
Yeah.
Like double down, be like, yo, we're just gonna go perform there, like motherfuckers. Here we go.
Yeah. Right.
They'd be sick to do it during Christmas too.
Yeah, but
right.
It's so soon.
Our holiday special.
No, not
next
this
week.
Yeah.
Or next Christmas.
Hey, surprise. Yeah, next Christmas, because then they're like 2 years
Satanic
in a
Planet's
row.
Christmas Miracle Show.
That would be great though, like to if we could somehow get the application pushed through and be like, yo, we're just gonna go ahead and play next year. If you guys were upset about this, we're just gonna have the band play there, and you can fucking suck a dick, you know.
Or if you can't turn the other cheek
Jesus
over this one, what the fuck are you turning the other cheek at all? What's you know?
Yeah.
You're gonna take what you see as an insult like this and have this ridiculous outsized reaction. Where does that actually fit in with the theology here?
I do like that you made I think you said like people were going to show up with pitchforks. I think that's hilarious because I just assume they're going to show up with guns. They're like concealed carry law. They're going to just shoot us. But a pitchfork would be pretty rad if like someone came at me with a pitchfork. I'd probably laugh and then get stabbed. But
it was Indiana.
It seemed pretty progressive there.
Maybe in Indianapolis. It's like all the states on the periphery. It starts.
When we pulled into town, because we had been rehearsing in Detroit.
Oh my God!
It was like 4 a.m. and this
this
kid rides by on his bike blasting his radio, and it was like,
dude,
what were the lyrics?
We can't say it.
Yeah, we can. It wasn't our song,
but it has a
hard
word.
R.
Yeah, hard R.
Well, not a hard R, but it was like. Oh, I wish I knew what the song was.
You came from my nutsack.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah. Dude, no. That leading up to the show was fucking super stressful. We fucking rehearsed in this super sketchy place in Detroit. It was like everyone was just so tense. The fucking van ride was just bumping. Everything. It was like...
Dude, there was an amp like right next to my face in the whole ride. It was
that was part of my stress though too, because I was thinking like, why did I do this? Like, I really value this project, so I was thinking like, oh man, this kind of thing is a band killer probably.
Yeah. Oh, if we would have gotten in an accident just on the way there, we would have died. The amount of gear that was crammed.
Oh, I don't mean a literal killer. I meant these are the kinds of projects that have. Yeah, but if damaged relationships between people working on projects.
If we're going to die, it was going to be in a car accident because we had just gear everywhere.
But anyways, it was just so stressful, and I was just like, dude, I don't know how we're going to fucking pull this off. I was fucking tired, everything. I know you were too. Everyone's just so fucking annoyed. And then we finally get to the Airbnb, and we're walking, and this tweaker dude, 4 a.m. with his boom box, just cruises by and has a song pretty much like, yeah, you came from my nutsack or something. And me and him looked at each other, just started laughing, and I was like, everything's going to be okay. Like, it's going to be good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was cool, though. Like, I appreciate all the stuff that you and TST did to make us play that event. And at the time, I was like, man, fuck Lucien. But now I'm like, that was sick.
See, I knew it.
But now I'm like, that was really sick. And I think the response that we got was something that I never could have imagined. It was really, really cool.
Like I was saying, like, I have no humility on that one. We deserve all the respect we get for doing something like that. Because I also see how many people won't do things like that. People who certainly make more money than us, but won't imagine doing something without the payoff, at a venue that you can't sell tickets at.
Right, but make more money than us when we're not.
But a lot of people don't see value in that, and that's also why like working with this project is such a great thing too, because I feel like you guys kind of share that.
Sure,
that impulse.
We come from the mindset of like, we don't create art for the like, I'm gonna get rich. Like, we do it for ourselves, and we want to make something that we enjoy and put it into the world, and whatever the outcome is fine. But the goal is like, do I love it? And not the goal is like, will this be successful? Because success is overrated and also really hard to nail down. And also, if you're doing it to try to make money, you're probably not doing it from your heart. So.
And you're just not going to do legendary shit like this. Like, there were so many unknowns with what we were doing, and I think that's what keeps so many people from doing so many things. Nothing was certain on that one.
But I mean, I'm glad that the record's out, the first record, and we're doing a second one. But if we would have just recorded the record for ourselves, I would have been happy at that point. I'd be like, you know what, we did this thing, that was fucking cool. I really love it, and that's that. The fact that it became a thing or went further than that is good. So not that I set my standards low, but like my expectations aren't like, I want to be like this successful band. I just want to do this thing and see what happens. It's uncharted territory. So, yeah.
Well, however I'm calibrated, I feel like I'm both kind of shy when it comes to meeting people in public, and naturally so when it came to performing and stuff like that. But now I feel more comfortable being on the stage than anything else and mixing with people and stuff like that. Good. So in some ways, the only way to really break the barrier for me and get me to do something is feeling that sense of pride or justice, that this needs to be done. If Sean Feucht did this, and now, if we don't do this, nobody will. Otherwise, I would have never seen myself going like fairly dry vocals.
Sure.
I had like some reverb and stuff like that, but to go from doing the first album where everything's heavily affected and I have no confidence in my vocals and I want them to be as muddied as possible, to being at the Indiana Capitol and just kind of growling things out raw and thinking like, okay, this is still working, well enough to be considered, competent or whatever. Like to me, that's kind of a progress that I didn't necessarily anticipate, and gives me the confidence to do more shows and everything else.
Yeah.
So, but I would have never put myself in that kind of situation if it weren't for the fact that there was a real purpose to this. I felt like it needed to be done.
Cool.
Yeah, it did. But I think I would like to see us. This sounds so weird to say.
Plus, we keep doing this shit and like having it stream live and everything, so it's like no room for error right on the first.
The
first
live stream
attempt.
stuff is a little concerning to me, just because I don't know how it's gonna. I feel like you should be there. Like the audience. If you're not there, you don't get to see it. Because I grew up with that before that existed, and I'm a fan of that. People should show up. But I understand some people can't, and we're not gonna tour all the time. But I was gonna say, like, I would like to somehow. I know that you might have to sort of separate your work with the band from TST, and I get that, but I get so I'm so psyched on like even your thing on CNN yesterday. Like I'm like, this shit's sick. Like you're going at DeSantis, calling him what did
Pathetic.
You call it?
The pathetic little coward.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, I want Satanic Planet to be part of that somehow. I want to fucking say that kind of shit too. Like, ugh.
Well, we'll probably get the opportunity. We file to play Iowa or DC, especially at this point. Like, we're recording this now at the day after my CNN interview where I called DeSantis a pathetic little coward. Fox News just ran a headline a couple hours ago saying Satanic Temple leader calls DeSantis a pathetic little coward and offers to debate him. So we'll see how that plays out. And like, I mean, we have presidential candidates bitching about us right now. So now is probably a good time to file our stuff.
Well, also too, I'm excited for the listeners to hear a new record because all of the backwards messages is going to call out all of them by name, and I think that's going to be great. That they're going to be, listed, because fuck them.
Yeah, Well, we played our introduction track a few times like live, and there's the backwards vocals that were it's like kind of our diss track, and now. We've decided we'll record those vocals at the last because, like, the diss track is kind of evolving as these politicians are actively now, trying to use us to rile up their base.
And, like, somehow not dying. Like, I'm like, why is Marjorie Taylor Greene not dead? Like, she should have... I don't... Yeah.
Died of what? Just her own stupidity? Accidentally tying her shoelace around her neck, or...
I don't know, struck by lightning or hit, so whatever.
Act of
I don't wish
God.
death on anyone except,
God.
yeah. Yeah.
Except peacefully by natural causes early.
Yeah. I just hope she dies amongst a couple of other people. Tucker Carlson is another one, the motherfucker. La Jolla's finest. Anyhow,
Let's make an album. We have a few more hours left.
Yeah. Cool. There you have it. That was episode 37 of the Cult and Culture Podcast. We appreciate you guys listening and paying attention and all that stuff. As far as the band Satanic Planet is concerned, I would like to just give a shout out to the Satanic Temple and how we are kind of intertwined with it, obviously because of Lucien. But a lot of their activism is really important and really dealing with pressing issues. And I don't know. I just want to say thanks to that entity for existing. And it really is like, it sounds kind of silly saying this, but it's like such a punk thing. It's like just like fucking with the government, fucking with laws, and obviously with religious fundamentalists that just have their heads up their asses. But yeah, so shout out to TST for sure. Also, we'd like to thank Becky and Andy for helping us all the time, and also Ruinous Media for being rad. Earthquaker, Fender, Heartwork Coffee for keeping us caffeinated, and I don't know, you, the viewer or listener, we appreciate you paying attention and I don't know, helping us out or paying attention and listening and digging what we're doing. So thank you very much. Take care.
Like.
Colton Culture is proudly sponsored by Earthquaker Devices, Fender, and Heartwork Coffee.
Planet B.